from the sycamore to the hillside with as much energy and perhaps as much courage as was displayed by that historic king of France who had 5,000 men and marched them up a hill and then he marched them down again. On one side of the sycamore was a great wall of weeds higher than my head when on horseback, a dense mass of yellow mustard and fragrant wild cherry which was covered with delicate white bloom. I saw blackbirds carrying material into this thicket, but as I had known of neighbors' horses getting bitten by rattlesnakes among the high weeds, did not think it worth while to wade around in it much for such common birds as they. But one day, seeing a pair of rare blue grosbeaks fly down into the tangle, I turned Billy right in after them, though holding his head well up in consideration of the snakes. The birds vanished, so we stood still to wait. Suddenly I heard a slight sound as if something slipping through the weeds at Billy's feet, and looking down, saw a snake marked like a rattler, and as it slid by Billy's hoof, I noticed with horror that the end of its tail was blunt. The harmless gopher snake that resembles the rattler had a tapering tail. I gazed at it spellbound, but in the dim light could not make out whether it had rattles or not. I had seen enough, however, and whipping up Billy was out of those weeds in a hurry. Safely outside, I looked at my little horse remorsefully. What if my desire to see a new nest had been the cause of his getting a rattlesnake bite? The next day when I went down to the sycamore, a German was mowing there with a pair of mules. He was a typical Rhinelander, with blue eyes and long curling hair and beard, and as he drove he sang in a deep, rich voice one of the beautiful melodies of his fatherland. Screened by the branches, I listened, quite unmindful of my work, till my reverie was interrupted by the man's giving a harsh cry to his mules. It was only an aside, however, for he dropped back into his song in the same rich, sympathetic voice. In riding out from the tree on my way home, I saw that he was mowing just where the snake had been, and warned him to be careful lest the horses get bitten. At the word rattlesnake, his blue eyes dilated, and he assured me that he would be on his guard. Seeing my glasses and my notebook, he asked if I were studying birds. When told that I was, from his seat on the mowing machine he took off his hat and bowed with an air of a lord, saying in broken English, "I am pleased to meet you," a pleasant tribute to the profession. A few days later, on meeting him, he asked if I had found the rattlesnake. He had killed it under the sycamore and hung it on a branch for me to see. As the memory of my morning rides down to the sycamore brings to mind the wonderful freshness of California's fog-cleared skies, so my sunset rides home from the great tree recall the peacefulness of the quiet valley at twilight. One sunset stands out with peculiar distinctness. As Mountain Billy turned from the sycamore marsh, its leaning blades gleamed in the evening light, and the sun warmed the sides of the line of buff Guernseys wading in procession through the high swamp grass to their outdoor milking stand. Beyond, a load of hay was crossing the meadows, with sun on the reins and the pitchforks the men carried over their shoulders. And beyond, at the head of the valley, the western canyons were filled with golden haze, while the last shafts of yellow light loitered over the apricot orchards below, where the tranquil birds were singing their evening songs. Slowly the long shadows of the mountain crept over the orchard and vineyard, until, finally, the sun rounded the last peak and left our little valley in darkness. End of Chapter 9.